Yeah, you got her.
Okay. Like to call to order tonight's study session of June 26th, 2023 at 6 p.m. And all council members are present except for Councilmember Stewart, who did call ahead. And Councilmember Reed, haven't heard from him yet. But do I have a motion to excuse Councilmember Stewart? Councilmember Botetto,
I'll make a motion to excuse Councilmember Stewart.
thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Cole. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Earl is excused. All right. So our first order of business is LTGO 2023 update for the cemetery building, and I will call on Cassandra Raymond, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening. Jeff, do you enable sharing? All right, just one moment, please. There we go. All right. So I am before you this evening to give an update on our LTGO for our cemetery facility. The ordinance came before you in May, delegating the authority to issue $3,050,000 in limited tax general obligation debt for construction of a cemetery building. So before you this evening with an update on that. So where are we so far? Again, this process started back in January of 2022, bringing an operations facility update to council, along with conversations about needed space at our cemetery. We began design. We've been updating council through that design process, and again came back to council in May with a delegation authority to issue debt for that building. We are, I have a slide later in the presentation with our construction update. But first, just talking about our LTGO debt that has been marketed. We marketed that beginning on May 18th through June 7th, and are providing an update to City Council this evening with the anticipation of issuing that debt on July 5th of 2023, so a week from Wednesday, and then beginning construction shortly thereafter, later this summer, early fall. Just a refresher on the ordinance, this provided for the issuance and sale of an LTGO bond in the principal amount of $3,050,000. The parameters were a true interest cost not to exceed 5.5%, and with a maximum term no later than July of 2033, so a 10-year issue. Our placement agent, Dave Tragerson with D.A. Davidson, marketed this to a good number of banks, and we actually got a very good response. I'm very pleased with the responses that we got. We began marketing right when there was a lot of federal conversation about the federal debt limit. So there was still some apprehension in the market, but we have a very good solid credit history. We have a solid financial history. And so we were able to get a fair amount of interest. JP Morgan Chase actually offered us 3 different scenarios depending on a call feature, either a no call feature, being able to call in 2026 or call in 2030. A call is essentially an early retirement. It would be, we would place with the intention of going out for 10 years, but we would retain the option to call it after a certain period of time. Usually with a call feature, you're paying a bit more in interest because the issuer is taking the risk that it's going to be called earlier and they're going to lose out on some of that long-term investment earnings. Commerce Bank also responded. Both North Cascades Bank and Kashmir Valley Bank responded with a caveat. They knew that their responses weren't going to be competitive, but they were just honestly excited to get back in the market and stay active. And they saw ours as one they were willing to bid on. Webster Bank and Flagstaff funding rounded it out. We've elected to award to JP Morgan Chase with option A. This is a no call feature. You can see the all-in true interest cost is 3.74%, which is well under our maximum with the ordinance of 5.5%. So this is 10 years. Our total debt service will be 3.65 million. That is a general fund expense. We do have that built into our long-term financial model. And where we're at now, we're planning on issuing that debt on July 5th. That will be in time to begin construction. We have 100% plans and specifications are currently in review. We're planning on advertising at the end of this month, actually later this week, with a bid opening in July, coming back to Public Works Committee in August, and then to council for award of that bid, and then construction in August, September. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor?
Sorry to ask you, but what was the no call thing again?
So a call
Were you gonna
feature,
ask that same thing?
that's okay. So a call feature on a debt instrument essentially gives the issuer, so that would give the city the right to call it early. So call it in advance of its maturity date. Usually that would happen if we were anticipating getting a big influx of cash. If for some reason we wanted to retain the flexibility of not holding that debt for a full 10 years, but instead call it, essentially retire it early. Buyers will generally would issue those at an increased interest rate because the buyer is taking on the risk that instead of having an investment for 10 years, they might only have it for 5 years. And so they're losing out on some of those interest payments in the later years. We looked at it. We know we have, potential cash flow in the future with various projects, construction, sales tax, things like that. But really those are going to be for bigger projects. We were comfortable saying that for this project, we were comfortable holding that debt for the full 10 years. It's a relatively short term for a capital facility.
Okay.
Often you can issue those for between 20 and 30 years. So at a relatively short term, a good interest rate, we were comfortable holding that for the full 10 years and getting the lowest all-in true interest cost we could.
Okay, so you're getting money at a reasonable price and you're going to hold the debt that long?
Yes.
And if I could just add in, there's nothing saying that a council, if they came into some one-time funds, they could also just set that money aside and pay your debt service out of those funds. So, which would then relieve that burden from the general fund moving forward. So kind of the best of both worlds.
Good. Anybody else? Barbara?
So you said the building was going to be 3.50 thousand, and so this 3.65 that includes all the interest over the next 10 years.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So that is interest as well as some issuance costs. There are some issuance costs when you issue debt of this kind. We'll pay a fee to the placement agent as well as for bond counsel. And so that's an all-in cost.
And what kind of fee do you have to pay to the bond agent?
It's usually between $5,000 and $10,000, depending on the size of the issuance. Here, we're looking at $5,000 for bond counsel for the bank, and then we'll have a cost for our issuance to DA Davidson for placement
Mhm.
and the bond counsel that we use.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Okay, moving on to sidewalk code update, and I'll call on Courtney Luttrell and Andrew Leach.
Patrick, here you.
And Patrick is not here yet.
Before we get started, I'll just make sure everybody is introduced to Courtney Luttrell. She's our engineering specialist. She's been with the city for about 8 months now.
Yeah, almost a year.
Almost a year. So this is one of her projects that she's been working on. So she's happy to answer any questions you have and turn it over to her.
Good evening. So tonight I'll be talking about the sidewalk code update and then also an update on our sidewalk program and different construction projects that have been going on throughout the city. So first I'll go over the code update, which is chapter 12 of the Sumner Municipal Code. I'll go through our sidewalk workflow. So what we go through when we get a sidewalk complaint, and then talk about program updates. And then Andrew will talk about the construction projects. So the sidewalk code update, this will be coming to council on July 17th. And this will be to update the code to reflect the rating system that we currently use. Right now, the code only has 2 different criteria that the sidewalk is evaluated on. However, there are more issues that can come about with the sidewalk damage. The code is used to prioritize sidewalk replacements with these programs that we have in place, as well as looking at equity throughout the city with the Pierce County Equity Tool. Yeah, it's a really short update to the code. It's just adding in, I think, 6 new criteria that the code for the sidewalk criteria that the sidewalk has. So sidewalk gaps, like that vertical gap on that top picture there, or cracking in the sidewalk from street tree damage, or if somebody were to have drove over it, things of that nature, and then curb ramps and other things like that. So it's just getting it up to speed on what we're doing now, so it's something we can use as an enforceable tool. So our sidewalk workflow, complaints are received via phone call or email. We have a designated email that's sidewalks@sumnerwall.gov that different people throughout the city who live here or just visiting are able to submit a complaint if they notice something is wrong, where somebody trips and falls. Once those sidewalks come in, I log them in a database that we have, and then our inspectors will go out and inspect those sidewalks with our inspection form and get a rating. From that inspection, we're able to determine who is responsible for the sidewalk damage. Is it the property owner, or is it the city of Sumner? Since we are responsible for street tree damages and then sidewalks that are next to our property. Once we have that information, I work with our shops to get a temporary repair completed. This is either painting to bring awareness that there is something there, or they'll place cold patch asphalt to kind of level out the sidewalk if there is that lip there, until we are able to get this fully repaired.
Are you okay with the
Yeah, of course.
Because I've had several people come to me that have reported their sidewalk problems, and they do get that little asphalt
Mhm.
fill. Are they told that that's a temporary repair? I mean, people are kind of complaining like, oh, well, all they did was just come out and, put that little
Mhm.
layer of goop there and then they're done. But sounds to me like you go further, you do something right away so no one falls,
Mhm.
and then you go a little further.
Yeah, so after we do that temporary repair, a notice of responsibility is sent out to the homeowners, acknowledging that it is their responsibility to make this repair, and then we let them know what we've done as a temporary repair. And then from there, the final repair would then be made.
So, and then the final repair could be at their cost.
Correct.
So could they stay at the temporary if they wanted?
The goal is to not. So we haven't got so far of a notice of violation yet. We're still working out how we want to address that. Since we do have the Helping Homeowners program that I'll talk a little bit about in the next slide. So that's offered on every biennium. We have a set amount if funds are available. So those that are notified of sidewalk responsibility, they would then be able to apply for funding a 50% cost share with the city. But those will be awarded based on severity of the sidewalk damage, and then where at in the city based on equity and where we've previously been for
Okay,
other
so there's
sidewalk repairs.
quite a process.
Yes.
There. But sometimes temporary, it could, I mean, if it's just a little teeny hump, it could probably be helpful, and they might be able to leave it at that. But you'll make that determination after that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the
Okay.
goal is a final repair in the end. But like you said, it can take a while to get to that point.
okay, thank you.
Oh, of course.
So with the temporary repair, I'm assuming they're always very minor and little expense, in order to make the temporary repairs. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay,
Any other questions on the sidewalk repair process? No, okay.
thank you, good.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the sidewalk program. So we have our Helping Homeowners Sidewalk Repair Program, Street Tree Repair Program, the ADA Repair Program, and then Trail Maintenance. So our Helping Homeowners Repair Program is a cost share program with homeowners throughout the city. This program is set up for $50,000 from the city and $50,000 shared amongst the homeowners. These locations, like I mentioned earlier, will be prioritized based on the severity of that sidewalk damage and location within the city based on that equity map. The applications will be sent out to the homeowners with the costs laid out, so they are fully aware of how much they will be responsible for this. And then they will be required to pay that before we get going on that construction. So if they're unable to do so, we can go on to the next person who is willing to participate. This project will be designed this coming fall and constructed next summer. This will be constructed at the same time as our street tree repair program, both designed this fall and constructed next summer with one contractor.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
So, if you reach that $50,000 threshold and there are other, homeowners that actually are in need, they have sidewalks that need repairing. Did you say that, yes, they can possibly wait for those and then request funding later?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where we're at with the notice of violation. We don't know how we want to handle that yet. If we continue to have funds from council or if it's a program that doesn't sustain.
And is that $50,000 for 1 year or the full biennium?
For the full biennium.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Potato.
So, over the weekend, I was by the Bank of America and somebody pointed out that they have a sidewalk that's, has a little lift in it, so people were tripping and, so does this program also apply to businesses? Or just for residences?
Right now, it's set up just for residences, because really, this program was designed to help those residences fix their sidewalks that were not financially able to fix them on their own, because it really, under state law, it is the homeowner's responsibility or the business owner in that case. Now, we are a little bit different, and Courtney's going to get into street trees next. So if the damage was caused by a street tree, everything I just said doesn't apply because it's our responsibility. So
And even for a street tree that's planted by a homeowner?
if we required them to plant the street tree, then it's us.
So we're very unique that we take on that responsibility of street tree damages. Most other cities still require the homeowner to make those repairs. So within our city, we have 456 locations of street tree damages. With this, we can probably only repair 90 to 100 within this biennium with the $500,000 that we have available. So it's going to take approximately 10 years just to deal with the damages that we have at this point. This repair would either mean taking out the tree completely or cutting the roots if the tree is able to survive and putting in that root barrier to ensure the damages do not happen again. So as mentioned with the Helping Homeowners, this is also based on severity of the damages and equity, and then where we have and haven't been in the city with past repairs.
Councilmember Potato.
So when you talk equity, what are you talking about? Is that financial equity or racial equity, or what is the criteria?
So Pierce County has a equity map that they have, and it's based off of various different types of equity. So they have livability, sustainability, economic, accessibility, things like that. And they use a bunch of statistics, and then they have this map, and there's everywhere is rated on low to high equity. And our city actually falls into 3 different categories of it. So we're in high, medium, and low throughout the city. So it takes into consideration a bunch of different factors.
Go ahead.
The clicker's not working.
While you're waiting on that fix, Jason, at some point, can we get a map that shows what the equity zones are, where they are?
Sure, I'll send out the link to the
Oh,
website,
oh,
'cause
we
it's all
can-
web-based.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
So our ADA program, we have $80,000 available for the biennium for this. This program is for immediate ADA issues that have been reported to the city. And that would include curb ramp replacements, sidewalks, or driveway approaches. And we have an ADA accommodation request that can be submitted to the city for these upgrades. We don't have anything planned at this current moment with these funds. There's no outstanding applications or anything like that. And so this funding is also available for the other sidewalk programs to use for ADA upgrades with those as well. And then our last program is the trail maintenance. This one is currently in the planning phase, and we have $100,000 available for this one for the biennium. And I will be working with the Parks Department to determine what repairs they want to see on the trails. So this one's still in the early phases with construction next summer.
Councilmember Potato.
So I know the trails have quite a few areas that are already painted yellow. And so it sounds like it'll be another 2 or 3 years before maybe they get repaired, or is it gonna take that long to
The repair should happen next summer.
next summer?
Yeah, so we'll plan this summer and fall and then make those repairs next summer.
Okay,
But $100,000 will not do all of the repairs needed.
right. I was gonna say there's what I've seen like in the north and then by the sewer treatment plant that's gonna go fast.
I want to let the record know that Patrick Reed has joined us. And we have a question from Councilmember Newman.
Thank you. Going back to equity, you don't have to go back to the slide, but I have a question about how equity works, because I think when I first read and understood it, it's identifying basically neighborhoods that should get attention for like prioritizing where we request like sidewalk improvements. But as we're going through this, I have a concern though. Does that also mean we're asking potentially lower wealth neighborhoods or residents? Are we forcing them to put a lot of their own money in, like, in to make those improvements in a way where our intentions are good, but maybe the play isn't?
Well, first off, on the street tree maintenance, Councilmember Newman, don't forget, that's all city funded. So that's where we're primarily using the equity tool, is on the street tree fixes,
Okay.
which are city funded.
Thanks. That's why I want a clarification. I wasn't sure about how it works.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And everything else is more complaint based?
It's complaint based, and then they'd be eligible for the helping homeowners, and equity may be used there, but really it's applicant based at that point.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else before we move on?
All right, I'll turn it over to Andrew, to talk about the CIP.
Good evening. I'll just give a quick few updates on some of our current projects that have activities related to sidewalk and trail replacements or bid items. So here's just a quick list of them. But first off, we'll talk about Main and Wood that's currently under construction. So this top photo is the rendering of what it's going to end up looking like. So this project obviously has replacing some of the existing sidewalk that was there, as well as putting some new areas kind of concurrent with the new parking stalls. But with this project, we're going to install approximately 650 15 feet of new sidewalk. There'll be new ADA accessible paths across the intersection with the new curb ramps. And then I guess the next big milestone coming up for this project is there'll be a full closure of the intersection starting July 5th. That's going to probably last about a month or so. So next project is the TCUW and Academy Street Bike Lanes project that we've all familiar with, pretty sure. So of course, this one had new ADA pedestrian access and sidewalks, curb ramps, curb bulbs all throughout the projects and intersections. But just kind of to total it all up, there's about 4,480 new feet of sidewalk and 51 new curb ramps. So a lot of new sidewalk infrastructure that went in with this project. And then the next upcoming project is our Elm Street sidewalks. It's currently, we just started design on it. We received grant funding from TIB for design and construction of this project. We got about $359,000 to help complete the project. So we just started design, looking to finish the design by the end of this year, go out to bid next winter, and then start construction in spring. But so this project is looking at the top photo, that green line is extending a 10-foot wide sidewalk. You kind of see on that red line on the edge of the photo, extending that sidewalk there to the Elm Street and Bonnie Ave intersection. So just providing an added connection to the Siebenthaler Park right there. And updating that kind of crossing across Elm Street, that'll be a flashing beacon. So making a safer crosswalk there. So look for that to be completed next year.
So Andrew, I still need some more landmarks.
Yeah,
The trees up at the top are Siebenthaler Park?
yes, that's, yeah.
No,
So
no.
that's, or,
That's,
That's badass. Siebenthaler is the bottom
oh,
left.
sorry.
oh, the bottom left. Okay, okay. And so you're making, what's the green line? It sort of changed the shape, but it doesn't follow the road exactly. So,
So the green line is just kind of an approximation, but that's where the kind of the new sidewalk will run along Elm Street.
okay, and there's no sidewalk up there now.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so what you're trying to do is make it a little safer to get to the park and a way for people to cross that.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
anybody else?
Yep.
So as we're getting all these improvements, you have all these big bump outs on, at the intersection. So what is the purpose of those? Is that to slow people down or?
Not necessarily to slow down vehicles, but it helps get a pedestrian kind of further out in the road, so that providing easier sight visuals for drivers to see somebody wants to cross. So it, like if there's parked cars in the roadway, that bulb out kind of gets the person past the parked cars, so a driver can see them more easily, and then it creates a shorter crossing distance in the street for a pedestrian. So
It's more for the pedestrians than it is for slowing people down.
yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I want to ask about that as well. I was curious as to what they were about, and I thought they were cute, but as I'm driving and there's a car that's, coming from the opposite direction, I don't know, it makes me a little nervous, like there isn't enough space. I'm pretty sure that there is, but I just feel like there isn't enough
Yeah.
space.
Yep. So in that aspect, it, I guess, kind of does help slow vehicles down, makes it look skinnier than it really is.
Mhm.
But there's plenty of space. It's designed for to keep, standard lane widths and things. So
And it has a little slope on it for someone who's wheelchair bound or whatever it does, all of them.
yeah,
Okay.
meets ADA slopes.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent. Okay, thanks.
Okay,
All right. The next project is the Friar Avenue Trail. It's been on the books for a little while, but been making some very good progress lately. We just completed the environmental phase for the project, so that was a big step, getting that out of the way. And then getting close on the design. I'd say we're about at 80% design. And then starting next year, we're going to start the right-of-way phase and purchasing properties along the length of Far Avenue for the trail. So looking to complete the design phase and right-of-way phases by the end of 2024, and then start construction in spring of 2025. We did just recently receive a nice size grant of 5.3 million from the WashDOT bicycle and pedestrian safety grant. So that will be coming in soon to help, and that will fund the construction phase of the project. So looking forward to finally getting that project constructed and filling that kind of gap of our trail system.
We good? All right.
And then the last project update I've got is our River Grove Community Pedestrian Bridge. We just recently received funding to complete the design for the project. I think that was about $500,000. So we're looking to complete the design either in 2024, but most likely 2025, because we'll have to do another environmental phase, which shouldn't take that long. But we're currently seeking construction funding. The construction phase is unfunded right now. Our estimates currently say it's going to be about $10.3 million to construct. So we'll be looking at other grant funding sources to fill that in and get this constructed. But with this, on either end of the bridge, there'll be ramps and paths and that connect to our existing sidewalk system, and there'll be some new curb ramps on either side. So the lower photo, that yellow line with the red dots, it got cut off a little bit, but shows kind of the alignment of where we're going to cross 410 with a pedestrian bridge, and then there'll be ramps leading up to it on either side. But with that current alignment, we're able to stay within existing city right of way as well as WashDOT right of way. So didn't need to impact any of the homeowners with the project. So that was a good plus with our current alignment selection.
We did have several people come up to the table when we were at Rhubarb Days, excited for the project, asking if it was going forward. So it's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Mayor.
So Andrew, how high is that above the road? I mean, I'm just trying to visualize it. Will you feel like there's just lots of space to drive under it, or?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure the exact height, but there's a required height limits that we have to follow per WashDOT. You know, there's got to be enough room for semi trucks to drive under, so it'll be plenty high enough.
Can you think of any similar example, like in Tacoma down at Park or whatever, or?
Yeah, well, it was not pedestrian bridge, but like Traffic Avenue Bridge at the height requirements there, crossing 410.
Any overpass.
Yeah, any overpass.
So it'll just be similar to a roadway
Yeah.
and not just look like a cage. I mean, it still might look like a wire cage, a squirrel run, but but it's gonna be.
I'm glad
big.
they're designing it, not you.
Yes, we'll try to make it nicer than some of those, like I think Tacoma might have one where it's crossing and it's just got those curved
Yeah.
cage fencing along the sides. So I think we're trying to work on some ideas that maybe give a little more character for Sumner.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions here?
I have.
Nope. Councilmember Cole.
Okay, so it crosses the 410 and then it goes west until what street?
So I know, so cutting west, it kind of, the top photo is actually where it comes over, and that's the corner of Alder and Maybell Street.
Yay, okay,
So
thank you. I wanted to see if it was gonna get close to Sumner Station. So it does.
yeah, you'll be able to run right down Alder and then probably cut up. Well, Academy is a good example where we'll have the bike lanes that are going in currently, and so.
Thank you.
All right, there you go.
And then just last slide is just a recap of the list of everything we talked about today. But that's it. Any other questions? for
Any
Courtney
other
or I?
final questions for either one of them? No. Oh, Councilmember Brown.
Yeah. I, something about my son, but so it hurt my son, but
Certainly.
You can self-report your sidewalk.
Yeah.
You might get a bill from us.
Yeah, but we have the sidewalk email address. I think it's just sidewalks@sumnerwa.gov, and then it's on the city website. And then Courtney is also our sidewalk guru complaints taker as well.
something about edges and I want an opinion.
Yeah, if you report a complaint on your property, we can come out and our inspectors will look at it and give it a rating.
Uh,
I have
Okay,
one other quick
One
question.
more.
But do you have forms upstairs too by where you pay your bills or anything where people might notice them? If
We just the ADA accommodation request, there's a form for that, but as for just a general sidewalk complaint, no special forms.
But they can walk up there and tell someone?
Yeah, exactly. They can,
And then, okay, that's what I'm wondering is because they may just come to City Hall
yep,
and want to take care of it. And you have a way for that to happen.
yes, yep.
Okay, but not on Fridays.
They can certainly email or call all day on Friday.
Okay,
Slip it under the door.
okay. All right, thank you.
Reed has a question. Just raise his hand.
Councilmember Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a quick question. It's only semi-related. There was a map that was distributed, I think it was earlier or late last week, with a chip seal map. And that's going to be happening the 5th to the 7th as well, or did I misread that?
Yes, we'll have a chip seal. The chip seal project will be starting July 5th and go through the 7th. So.
Okay, and it was quite a wide area that was going to be covered.
Yes, we had a good bid on the project and then are able to tackle those amount of roads with our current budget. So there's chip seal happening on 160th Avenue, Wood Avenue, 142nd, just the stretch or just before it turns into Tacoma Avenue, kind of along in front of the shops up to the 142nd Bridge, Elizabeth Street. And is that it? Sorry, just running through. Elizabeth, 160th, Wood, 142nd.
We'll be covering chip seal, crack seal, and overlay at an upcoming study session in just a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because and part of what caught my attention on it as well was it looked like there were some areas on the east side here off of Mead Macumber that were going to be part of that process.
Or that'll be the crack seal.
crack
So that's just, a little bit different than the chip seal.
Oh, okay.
So chip seal is different process of fully resurfacing roadways. The crack seal is just filling in the cracks in the road with the kind of tar-like material. So
The map that circulated was really impressive. That's a lot of work in a short amount of time.
yes, one of our newer engineering specialists, Grisimran Singh, has been working on that program and moving it along and figuring out using our pavement preservation program to figure out where the worst roads are and keeping it all organized and making sure we aren't overlapping. And so he's put in a lot of work. So
Great. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Nice job, guys.
thank you.
All right. moving on to downtown property acquisition. City Administrator Jason Wilson, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Stephens, let me start my presentation here in just a second.
Councilmember Reed, did you have a question while we're waiting, or did you just not put your hand down? There we go. All right.
Waiting on my presentation.
Wow.
Everybody was supposed to wear pink today. What happened?
Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about downtown property and the possibility or council's temperature on whether or not we should be acquiring some property. We're going to do half this presentation in front of the full council, and then we are going to adjourn later on this evening into an executive session where we will talk a little bit more in detail. If council does want to move forward, we'll be talking about prices and dollar amounts, which are covered in the executive session portion. So why are we here? I think we all know vacant land in the downtown core is becoming extremely scarce. The need for additional parking is a regular request from our downtown merchants, not only for their employees, but also their visitors. And also, just a reminder, the Main Street vision included activated east-west alleys. So this is a picture from that Main Street vision document showing those east-west alleys behind both buildings, behind the buildings on the north side and also on the south side there. As a reminder, we do have a number of public parking lots located in our downtown core already. They're highlighted here in yellow. What's not on this map is also the employee lot located right here behind City Hall that is also available on the weekends for the public to use. And also the Sound Transit lots can also be used. However, they are technically only supposed to be for commuters, but Sound Transit's pretty generous and they let people park there. So I'm just going to go through 3 different properties that are downtown. It's important to know that none of these are currently on the market for sale. However, a lot of people have brought it up to the city of, well, you should buy this land, you should buy this land. We did have one property owner, and I'll point that out when we get there, that has approached the city saying, hey, would you be interested in purchasing my land? But it's not actively on the open market right now. So the first one is 921 Alder Avenue. This is the Bank of America property. What's unique about this is it would complete the missing alley connection. One thing on our activated alley plan, this is a piece of land where the city does not own alley right of way. So that's between numbers 3 and 5 there on that map. Part of the reason why the city might be interested in trying to acquire this property is because we could do an RFQ, which would help us influence what future development occurs there on that property. We all know that is a very prominent location, being at the T intersection in downtown. But from a parking standpoint, it currently has minimal public parking benefit. There's about 19 parking stalls that are currently on that property. It is 3 different parcels, plus any future development, depending on what use that is, may require some parking be added for that. The next piece of property is 1225 Main Street. This is next to Quality Cleaners and Point S Tires. It's right in between the two. This is the property that the owner has approached the city and asked us if we would be interested in purchasing it. It could provide about 14 parking stalls at the cost of about $250,000 to construct those parking stalls. Some other points of interest, it is directly across from Lucy V. Ryan Park. And there is another city lot nearby. A lot of people don't realize this, but the parking lot to the east of Quality Cleaners, between that and Day and Night Grocery, is a city lot. It has about 14 stalls in it currently. One issue or potential issue with this piece of property is based on the location, there may be some environmental risks associated with that property. The next piece of property is 911 and 917 Ryan Avenue. So this is located just around the corner here. It could provide about 35 parking stalls. At a rough estimate, costs about $500,000 to build those stalls. Once again, it is adjacent to Lucy V. Ryan Park. And we already do have right of way for our alley, both running north-south and east-west here. This is an undeveloped piece of property. It's been vacant for a very long time in the downtown core. We also do have a city lot across the street next to the trackside where our public restrooms are located. So really the questions and considerations for council tonight are this, is securing land for additional downtown parking important to council? Land likely is not going to get any cheaper. We all know that. One thing to consider is improvements can be phased as financial resources are available. We've even had some very early discussions with Sound Transit. I don't know that it would be effective for them, cost effective for them, but they might be able to help us pave the lots if it's in lieu of mitigated parking. Unfortunately, Sound Transit needs to mitigate a lot more than 30 to 40 stalls, but it might be an option for them. It requires some further discussions. And then funding sources, I think it's just important to understand that grant funds are very unlikely for either the acquisition or the construction of downtown parking. Really your best uses or best funds that would be available for this year, strategic reserve funds, as well as a general fund balance. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and open it up for discussion.
Any questions on any of those? Councilmember Cole.
Yes, I just have some general questions about the existing parking. Like I know that we've talked about this before, but I'm not really aware of where they are. And to me, they're, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're not marked, correct? They don't say public parking.
They're marked, but I would not say that they are marked well at all.
Okay.
So we're actually doing a wayfinding sign project and they're going to be marked a lot better later this year.
Okay, because my really was like, why aren't they marked well so that people know that that parking exists? I've been to the quality cleaners a couple times, but never really knew that there was parking there.
They have pictures of daffodils.
Oh,
Yeah, they're brown signs on brown buildings named
Okay.
after daffodils that you probably never heard about.
yeah, actually, I think I've seen the signage, but okay. So that was my question for now.
All right, anybody else?
Okay, I do.
So, well, let's get Councilmember Newman first. She had her hand up. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I enjoy the idea, and as our growth kind of explodes, some of these make sense to me, particularly on the Ryan one where people are kind of already parking, but it's a mud bath. And it has been vacant, but also including the bank. The bank, it would be interesting if we could do something else other than just parking. My one issue with the dry cleaner site is that I would really like for Sumner to avoid doing the 50s style model of like strip malls and parking lots where you have to walk across parking lots before you can go, while you go from one store to the next. I don't think that's an attractive Main Street. And so I really like anything that we can do Main Street adjacent, but not directly on Main Street. So I'm not opposed to acquiring the dry cleaner place, but I wouldn't want to use it strictly hopefully that goes to some other development or storefront rather than parking. But I like the ones that if you can get it right behind Main Street, those are appealing to me. Just wanted to stay within the character of Sumner.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mhm.
Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
So Jason, would you explain the Sound Transit mitigation that you were mentioning? Quite, I mean, because they're building the garage, they're going to be using up some of the spaces or?
Correct. So the new parking garage is going to be built on the side of the existing surface lot at the Sounder station. So during construction, they're required to mitigate that parking impact because obviously if you're building a garage there, you can't park cars there at the same time. We have entered into an agreement with Sound Transit that there's certain thresholds that the Bonnie Lake Park and Ride lot has to hit before they're required to provide mitigated parking. But every day that goes on, we know that the Sounder ridership continues to inch up. So, they're gonna have to provide this mitigated parking sooner than later. So mitigated parking could be another surface lot somewhere in this area. It could be in the city, it could be outside the city. It could be something that's serviced by a commuter bus, or it could be something that people have to walk from. So there's lots of options when it comes to mitigated
But
parking.
would they be required to asphalt an area and do it like that?
Their strong preference is to not construct parking. They would rather lease parking from that's already in existence. So if you look around our community, what they've looked at are churches in the area or other large businesses that may have parking that's not used during the week that they could
And they would be leasing that to them?
correct.
Okay, because that's more of what I visualized. So when you brought it up in this case, I couldn't figure out why they would, be willing to asphalt and make a parking lot.
Sometimes it's all about dollars and what makes a business sense
Okay,
for them.
all right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Reed
Oh,
has his hand.
Mr. Reed, I see your hand barely.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a minor opinion on two of the locations. One is the bank. I'm not sure that that's the best route to go. As it was pointed out, that's a marquee position of downtown. I don't know if the plan is that the building's going to be coming down or that it would just be for the purpose of acquiring the parking lot portion and then leasing the building or selling the building. Those are some of the questions I would have there, but I think encouraging more to be built on those two lots or to be finished out on those two lots versus parking. Now on the old beach house property, very interested in that as a lot. However, very concerned about the potential risks that go with that particular piece of property and what could come out of it in the long term as far as expense to the city.
Mr. Reed, I think you brought up a good point. When you look at the Bank of America parcel, that's brought up by community members and business owners just because of the desire to control what goes in there. I don't know, just like you said, I don't believe that really would address anything parking wise for the city. So
Okay.
I included in this discussion because if with your limited financial resources, staff would want some input from you. What's more important, controlling what goes into a marquee corner or expanding parking long-term for our community?
Yeah, and I'm of the mind of it. I mean, I'd like to have influence over it, but not necessarily control what goes in there. I think that the market's going to decide, because that's not going to be an inexpensive piece of property.
Deputy Mayor.
So that's not the one we needed the alley access from, is it?
Well, we don't have alley through there today. That doesn't mean that through the development of that, we might not be able to get some right of way as part of their development process or some sort of partnership. But that would be to be determined during that permit process.
Okay, so that is something we're interested in having, that the alley continue through that and go further. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
And just so my 2 cents, I think parking is more important than having an influence on what goes into that on that particular site. I think parking would be more important to our citizens.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, can I ask just a policy question of the council?
Yes.
Does council feel it's important to look for land to expand parking downtown right now? Seeing heads.
Councilmember Brown, you said yes. You say yes?
Yeah, I do too.
Yes.
And I would say yes too, only based on what I've heard tonight. I always use the Sound Transit parking because I'm familiar with it. And I didn't realize that merchants were complaining about the lack of parking. So I would agree.
Councilmember Reed.
I think the right opportunity, but I think we have a lot of other priorities within the city that are going to need attention as well.
Councilmember Newman.
Yeah, sort of to Mr. Reed's point, it kind of depends at what cost, like what are we foregoing because we do it? However, yes, I think small businesses and small downtown, like it will help support downtown. But only if it's in the right place. And I don't mean that we jump on every one of these opportunities. It's kind of I don't have enough information to know the cost benefit.
Thank you. It's all very good insight, and that's what we need to start doing, a cost benefit analysis. And once again, none of these properties are actually on the market right now. Only the one on Main Street has contacted the city asking if we'd be interested in purchasing it. That's what kind of started this whole discussion. Plus, we have been hearing for many years now about a lack of parking in our downtown core. And then if anybody went to Rhubarb Days, oh my goodness, not that one lot is going to solve the parking issue for that, but we had cars all the way out to Thompson for
Mhm.
most of Saturday and Sunday, which was an amazing thing to see.
Yeah.
I think Councilmember Potato.
Councilmember Patel.
Well, I think if you're gonna have the Hops Alley and, that concept of having like the booths in that area, then you really do need to look at expanding that alleyway. But if we don't really want to go ahead and fulfill that dream of Hops Alley, then you probably wouldn't need as many parking places. But yes, I mean, I walked up Wood Avenue partway, and then, there were just cars all over the place. So, it was great to see the pouring of people in the city.
Okay,
Thank you. We'll continue this discussion.
all right. So we'll move on to city administrator report, and then we'll go into executive session. Is that how we want to do it?
Yeah, and then do the agenda setting items too,
Okay,
and then we can move into executive session.
all right. Go ahead, Jason.
And I have no report tonight, so.
No
we can go
report.
Right into the.
Okay. Do we have any council meeting issues? None, seeing none. And committee, any committee meeting issues? Also seeing none. All right. So we will break into executive session for
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
And Mayor, you need to read the language.
Okay.
Or I can't.
For the purpose of discussing with legal counsel real estate acquisition sale pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101 B, C, and potential litigation per RCW 42.30.1101 I, not to exceed 30 minutes. And we are adjourned to executive session at 7 PM.
Councilmember Newman and Reed, there should be a separate link. In your
There'll
email.
be a separate link for Councilmember Newman and Reed.
Thank you.
Yeah, even my toes are cold.
Yeah, it is.